Alright, what's up YouTube? It's your boy Theo once again, bro, and today we're gonna be reacting to I wish I never went to this party. So apparently he went to a Illuminati party, and this story is really interesting, so I want y'all to watch this with me. You feel me? Let's get busy. Alright, let's get...
Welcome back to another story. If you really love spooky, scary stories told in the first person, you're on the right channel. I encourage you to like and subscribe if you want, right? It helps me. If it helps me, it helps you. The more it helps me, the more stories I can get to you. So liking and subscribing, just absolutely backflip onto that subscribe button if you don't mind. This story I dropped a few months ago, and it didn't get any traction when I initially started dropping it. And then it started to blow up on Facebook a month later after I had already abandoned it and moved on. But a lot of people demanded another part, so this is going to be the full story of the society with an extra part at the end. I'm so happy people started enjoying this. I really appreciate it. Enjoy the show.
32 minutes.
So this story is the reason I stopped making content for 5 years. You guys remember when all those Vine stars and skit Instagrammers moved to LA in like 2015-ish? So I wasn't a huge creator at the time, but I was there and around it all as all of that stuff was happening. I moved from Chicago to LA 3 weeks after high school with like $2,000 in my pocket that I saved up working at Steak and Shake with this other aspiring creator named David. I was much more into editing and being behind the camera at that time, and he was much more into Vine and vlogs and being on camera. That time of our lives was absolutely crazy. Everybody was broke, posting anything we could onto YouTube to get some attention. I happened to get a spot at the now notorious 1600 Vine Apartments, and David got a spot a little bit closer to USC. Everyone was collaborating with everyone, and it was the era of clickbait.
It's crazy that all these motherfuckers were living around where I was living at, and I did not know. All these motherfuckers right there.
And to be honest, it was extremely fun for the first few months, until Hollywood started to notice that influencers were the next big thing, and that the landscape of the industry was changing. And we started to get invited to more exclusive parties and events, where it seemed as if old Hollywood was almost grooming new Hollywood. And there was rumors of this one gathering that was happening on a monthly basis, where it seemed like anybody that got invited saw a massive jump in their numbers, secured huge brand deals right after attending. But apparently this gathering worked on a buddy system. Someone had to vouch for you and bring you as a guest. And by blind luck, me and David ended up getting invited. Some talent agents saw me and David shoot a silly skit at a random party. He didn't invite us that second. He just told us that he saw something special in us and took our contact information. And listen, people do that all the time in LA, but this guy had a different feel to him. He wasn't trying to convince us he had connections or hype himself up like everybody else does. He was just super calm and had a sharp way of speaking that demanded respect. He was extremely brief, and after getting our numbers, he just said, "Look out for the invite," and walked away. And this is where it gets weird. I never gave this guy my address. I only gave him my number, but I ended up getting an invitation by letter. And at the time, I thought that that was so cool. But in retrospect,
that is the coolest shit ever, bro. Like, to get to, they don't even have your address, bro, but they got your address, and you just get a letter. You know how cool that shit is? Invited to a party, bro. That is wild. It's wild.
Retrospect as an adult, looking back at it, that alone was a huge violation of privacy and a major red flag. But at the time, when I tell you I was absolutely buzzing with excitement. When I got it, the letter was so extravagant and detailed. It was gold with black and red lettering that read something like, "Your talents have been noted, your name has been endorsed, and I'll never forget this part. The dreams you have been chasing are a night away through the seventh heaven." And the address was a beautiful home in Laurel Canyon that was set to happen that weekend. It also noted to not be a minute late and not to expect to leave before midnight. And at the time, it felt like the Willy Wonka golden ticket. And the excitement doubled when I got a text from David at the same time, in all caps saying, "Did you get one too?" I felt like our lives were about to change. And I was right. David blew up after this party, and I had to go into hiding. I felt like our lives were about to change. And I was right. David blew up after this party, and I had to go into hiding. When I tell you I was on cloud 9 leading up to that party, I mean it. I was so young and naive and delusionally optimistic. I truly believed that I was going to go to this party and leave rich, because it literally seemed like that was happening to the creators around me that attended. I was hyped. I've never been a braggy person, but when you're young and excited, you get consumed by good news and want to talk to your friends and peers about it. So everybody that I chatted with who I knew was a content creator and was in the know about this party, I couldn't help but to tell them. And all the feedback was positive and along the lines of, "Let me know how it goes," or "Can you try to get me into the next one?" And even some from bigger creators saying, "I'll see you there," with like a little smirk on their face. Like they were pumped for me. Except for one conversation with a creator that most of you probably know. This creator is an extremely positive guy, and he's one of the most wholesome, bubbly, genuine guys I met out there. And when I told him the good...
I became interested in Emilio when I needed to pay one of my business vendors who didn't accept credit card.
Good news, he looked at me like I told him a tsunami was headed towards the building. The usual joy that this man brought to every conversation turned into real fear and concern, and he made me leave the lobby and come up to his apartment before explaining anything to me. Like he was scared that somebody was gonna overhear our conversation. When we got up to his apartment, he was just pacing, like he had no idea how to start this conversation. But when he finally spoke up, all he said was, "Listen, Doug, I know you're excited, but I'm begging you, please do not go. That man is not who you think he is." He was being so frantic, and I could see tears welling up in this guy's eyes. But I was young, and I thought that I knew everything. I didn't even think the talent agent that sent us the invite was important. I was interested in the connections, and I didn't really care if the talent agent was shady or if his intention was to sign me to a bad deal. I thought I'd just say no to any bad contract that he'd try to send me, but still get to reap all the benefits of the party. So I tried to pry a little bit and ask follow-up questions, but all he gave me was, "I have a friend who went, and he hasn't been the same since he didn't cooperate. I don't know what he saw or what they did to him, but Doug, I do not want to see that happen to you. I don't know what he saw or what they did to him, but Doug, I do not want to see that happen to you." I start reassuring him that they won't make me do anything that I don't want to do. I don't even drink, let alone take any party favors. So peer pressure isn't much of an issue for me. I make up a lie to get out of the situation,
but he ain't really got street smarts, bro. I'm listening to it. He ain't got no street smarts, bro. He just excited.
To be honest, I selfishly wanted to stay excited about this party, and I really didn't want to hear anything negative about it. So I jokingly told him that I'd text him when I got home and that I had to leave to edit some videos tonight. What I was really doing was calling my dad to beg him for $100 to buy a rental suit. Mind you, we were all still poor, and I was living in an apartment that I could barely afford. My dad reluctantly sent me the money, and I immediately texted David to pick me up tomorrow at 5 p.m. so we could both get our suits before the party and grab food before we head to the party at 11. When David picked me up the next day, he was so excited and in such a great mood that I had to hide my concerns from him, at least while we were shopping for the rental suits. I had to manufacture excitement because David always has his camera out, and I wouldn't just be spoiling the mood, I would be ruining the content that he was trying to record. So I went along with it throughout the shopping process. Our plan was to drop his car off at my apartment, walk to the In-N-Out Burger on Sunset Boulevard, eat, and then change into our suits in the bathroom and hop into the Uber, so we didn't smell like burgers. When we finally sat down to eat, I took that opportunity to bring up the warning that my friend gave me the day before in his apartment. I told him everything that he said to me and how scared he looked when he said it, and that I was feeling a little bit worried about going to this party. David cut me off before I even got to finish my...
So you waited until... He waited until... Bro. He waited until he got to the place to get something to eat at In-N-Out, bro. He waited till that to tell his friend. So he just spent $100 and now he don't want to go to the party, bro.
Sentence and firmly said we're going, and then went on a rant about how my friend is a jealous clout chaser and that he's just salty that his content isn't good enough and would never be invited to something like this. He said it in a half serious, half joking tone like he always does when he wants to get his way. Then he finished off by guilting me and saying, "Doug, don't ruin this opportunity for us. Please just get through this party for me." I'd never heard anybody talk about my friend that way, but I'd known David for so much longer, so I trusted his judgment. So I nodded my head and called the Uber. We changed in the bathrooms and hopped into the Uber, and David starts recording again, so I have to pretend to be excited again. But once we got off the side streets and started driving up Laurel Canyon, I started getting anxious and internally panicking. If you're not familiar with Laurel Canyon, it's filled with beautiful homes, but at night it's extremely dark and borderline freaky, especially when you consider all the history with the Manson murders in that area. Part of me feels like we're dropping ourselves off into a setup, but once we arrive, all of my worries get washed away. We pull into the driveway and this house is beautiful and extravagant, and everyone waiting in line to walk in is smiling and laughing and friendly, so I get excited again. At the door, they take our phones and have us sign an NDA, which isn't uncommon.
Actually, no, that is common in LA. Signing an NDA, yeah, that is common. So you can't really say nothing that happened in the party. So yeah, I have NDAs if I do a big ass party.
In house parties like this in LA, and they give us a mask and a name tag with funny aliases. My mask looked like a bear and David's looked like a bird. My alias was Stardust, which David got a crack out of, and his was Banshee. We enter what you could call like the lobby of the house, and as we're walking in, the apparent host of the party starts giving a speech. This man is very eccentric and outspoken, and he's got the cadence of a late night show host, and I spot the agent that invited us standing right behind him. The speech was basically just encouraging everybody to have fun and explaining the itinerary of the night. Apparently this was a themed room party, and all of the guests were instructed to move to the next room whenever the grandfather clock chimed. He wrapped up his speech with some cheeky joke, and then one line that still irks me to this day. He said, "Have fun now. Our descent starts at midnight." I tried to give David the eyes that I didn't like where this party was going. This type of behavior from people that I saw as adults made me extremely uncomfortable. The moment the host wrapped up his speech, a couple of workers came out of the doorway. They were holding a couple sets of long poles. All of a sudden, music started playing and everybody seemed like they knew what was going on, so I just went along with it. So I guess these parties start off with a big game of limbo. It's funny seeing people dressed so nicely playing a silly child's game, but it's even weirder seeing A-list celebrities being so excited to play. Because everybody had masks on, but when somebody that you grew up watching in movies walks by you with a quarter of their face covered, you still know it's them. I was amazed with how inviting and willing to introduce themselves.
That's wild,
I was expecting at least an undertone of uppityness in there, but it seemed like everybody was involving everybody in conversation, and they were frequently introducing themselves to me with their alias, of course. The only thing weird about it was something that I didn't notice until the third person did it. When they shook my hand, they pressed their thumb into the soft part between my thumb and my pointer finger, and I only recognized the pattern because the third guy gave me a big smile and said, "This must be your first time here." In retrospect, this should have alarmed me, but it seemed like they got friendlier when they realized that it was my first time here, so I didn't really think anything.
What amazing ideas do you have buzzing around in your head? Turn your ideas into reality with an...
It's getting interesting.
But before I got to ask any follow-up questions about this odd handshake, the first grandfather clock chime went off, and everybody excitedly rushed into the second room. When I finally got in there, I was taken aback by the dramatic decor change. Everything in this room was different shades of blue. The music was romantic, and all the furniture was cabana beds and love seats. I stood there for a second trying to realize what was different, but I couldn't put my finger on it until some girl walked by and caressed my shoulder in a really flirty manner. The decor changed, but the way everybody was acting was drastically different. Before, everybody seemed to be outgoing and inviting and friendly, but the second they stepped foot into this room, they became touchy, flirty, and suggestive. I was only 19 at the time, so this type of behavior from people that I saw as adults made me extremely uncomfortable, especially when I saw that the cabana beds had curtains that you could close for privacy. And I realized that these people weren't just being suggestive, they meant it. I tried to give David the eyes that I didn't like where this party was going, but he seemed to be really enjoying the female attention, so I was on my own. I basically stayed in perpetual motion and walked laps until the next chime went off, so I didn't have to sit next to anybody for too long and let them get too comfortable. The clock finally went off and everybody rushed to the next room immediately. The weirdest part was the people that were in the private sections didn't even bother redressing except for the mask. I was in no rush to get to the next room, but I could see into it over the crowd of everybody's head. The walls were bright orange, but the smells that were wafting in from that room were amazing. And when I finally got in there, it was like the Hogwarts feast. It was table after table of the most delicious spreads I've ever seen. There was full tables for seafood, full tables for meats, full tables of sushi, and an entire wall of spirits. I almost started enjoying myself again. Until I saw the way these people were treating this food. They were disrespectfully biting chunks out of delicious prime rib roasts. They were just shoving copious amounts of high-grade sashimi into their mouths and eating caviar like it was cereal. The way that they were just grabbing with their hands and just spitting out things that they didn't like onto the floor ruined my appetite. At this point, I wanted nothing to do with these people. So I went up to the only familiar face in the room. The agent that invited me was the only other person not eating. So I approached him and lifted up my mask so he'd recognize me, considering we'd only met one time. Before I even got out my greeting or got my mask halfway off my face, he abruptly pressed my mask back into place and sharply said, "Mask stay on till the 6th room."
Exactly.
He did it in a way that seemed like I was embarrassing him for not knowing the rules. So to ease the tension, I jokingly replied, "So we're only halfway there, huh?" He didn't laugh or make eye contact. He just dismissively replied, "I encourage you to engage in the festivities. A slow drip is better than a flood." He started to walk towards the door as the clock chimed for the next room, like he knew it was about to go off. I didn't like that interaction at all. He's the one that invited me here, and he seemed to have no interest in talking to me. I just kept going over what he said the entire time while we were in the next room. This room was yellow and basically just a casino. I wanted to talk to David privately and let him know that I wanted to leave, but he seemed to just be caught up in the momentum of the party. Plus, there was a roulette table in the room, and David's freakishly good at roulette. So at this point, the winning streak that he's building is the center point of the party. I can't fully focus on what the agent said to me because I have to pretend to be excited about David's winning streak in a fake casino where you're not actually winning money. And like clockwork, the chime goes off. The entire party starts rushing to the next room again, and the vibe changes dramatically. I'm the last person to walk into the bright red room. This room didn't seem to have a specific activity like the others. It was just empty and bright red, and everybody was whispering to each other. For a split second, I thought it might be a big game of telephone or something silly like that, but as I started walking through and brushing shoulders with these these people and hearing what they were saying to each other, I started questioning everything. The same people that I saw laughing and celebrating and eating together were whispering the most heinous, offensive comments directly to each other. I mean things that you wouldn't even say behind your friend's back, they were saying it to their face. I'm talking friendship-ending secrets and personal opinions about each other laced with envy and jealousy. I hurried to a quiet corner because I was sick of hearing everybody's dirty laundry after walking around for a minute and a half. And it all clicked. I knew exactly what this party was. I see the host ask the first person in line a question before having them repeat something that he said. When I tell you I am done with this party, I'm absolutely not doing that. All the dots start connecting in my head while everybody's being horrible to each other around me. I'm trying to recap the whole night and remember the order of each room to solidify my suspicions. But the chime for the next room goes off. This time, everybody gets eerily quiet and calm, like they got all of their venom out. The host of the party announces for all of the newcomers to come to the front. All of the attendees form a single file line in front of the next room's door. There's about 10 other newcomers in front of me and David, and the agent that invited us is standing to the left of the door, and the host of the party is standing to the right. The host has a pile of books on the table next to him. I see the host ask the first person in line a question and then grab a book based on his answer. He would present the book to the person and place a diamond-shaped metal symbol on top of it before having them repeat something that he said. Then he'd take their mask off and let them enter the next room. I couldn't make out exactly what he was doing until there was only two people